We're going to get into some Bojutsu here, and I'm going to kind of keep the live stream open. You're welcome to ask any questions. What I want to do is I want to share with you this morning the basic sequence of techniques that we do. I have my student Harry in from Connecticut. He's going to be helping me later on when we get into the kata Tatsu Otoshi, which I'll be sharing with you today. But what I want to do really is take a moment, if you want to stick with me on the stream, and I want to go through the basic warm-up that we do. I want to break the warm-up down into the specific details that can't be ignored, rather than just, I mean, anybody can just kind of swing a stick around, right? And that's pretty easy. But applying the proper fundamentals and mechanics to the movement so that you're able to create good habits and you're able to have powerful and dynamic movement, and you're able to progress with the bow and build an actual skill set that's meaningful with this particular weapon is extremely important in this martial art. So for that reason, it's really important that you commit to basics. And not to sound, not to sound arrogant in any way, but if I just firmly believe from my own personal experience and observation that regardless of your skill level, regardless of how many stripes you have on some black belt or what you choose to wear on your legs, if you're not committing to training your basics constantly, then you're really not going to progress. You're just going to end up doing a combination of movements, and you're going to be able to, you're going to memorize different sequences, and that's not meaningful. So really having a good, solid regimen for basics is, I can't stress that more. So let's get started. Harry, you could train over here beside me. Obviously, the first thing is to know your kamae. Actually, Harry, come on over here if you wouldn't mind. This way I can get my footwork on. Is to know your kamae and to know and understand the purpose behind the kamae. We're not going to get into that right now because what I want to do is I really want to move through the, like I said, the basic strikes for this string. So each one of the techniques, the Kihon waza, can be started from proper Seigan no kamae, Chudan no kamae, Gedan no kamae. It really makes no difference, but for training here, please observe, take notes, do whatever you want. I'd prefer it if you grabbed something and you got off your feet and you actually did the movements, but hey, that's up to you. But for this exercise, we'll begin Seigan no kamae. I'm going to break each one of the movements down for you and how I teach it. Actually, how I teach it, not how I want you to do it, because those are two different things. Now, with each of these movements, there are different ways of advancing. The most common way is to let the weapon come back, and then you go ahead and you do your strike. But that should not be the case with every movement. As you progress, you should be able to control and determine how this strike is going to be based on your center, based on if you're pursuing, or if they're advancing, or if you're in a ito isoku no mai, like distance, where they're one step to cut, you're one step to strike, and you're sort of squared off. So you should make sure, as you progress, of course for a beginner, if pulling the weapon back and then doing the strike is the easiest, then start there. Because the beginner student needs to learn a sequence for whatever your basics are. They need to learn the ABCs before they start putting the words together. But if you're more advanced, then you need to understand that if you watch this weapon, one manner of doing the basics, once I get beyond pulling the weapon back into a proper hand position to move into the strike, is to actually move my body into that hand position. And this is oftentimes very ignored by those experts out there teaching. But being able to move your body and then into the strike, or being able to actually shift with the weapon. So not only am I pulling it back, not only am I advancing, I'm doing both at the same time, where I shift and pull back, or I just advance forward, or I pull back. So this is what I would really, I'd recommend you adding this dimension into your basics with Bojutsu for your own Tai Sabaki, for your own body movement. Because just sitting here and doing this, in my opinion, well, whatever, it's sort of a waste of time if you're looking to advance your skills, okay? So let's work from that basics platform right now. Let's just bring the weapon back. Then from here, the first strike is going to be Tento Menuchi, or striking straight to the top of the head. From here, to really make sure that you understand that this strike is coming straight down versus coming kinda straight down, where I'm coming in from an angle and then I'm hooking down. It's not like a true Tento Menuchi. It's not a true technique. It's because there's power vacuum here as you're coming in at this angle, and you're not going to consistently be accurate. So at the very, very beginner level of this strike, I want students to bring the weapon back to this position where the hands still stay in Seigan. The bowl comes back. The hands, don't mistake this as the hands coming back from Gaidan. Of course, you could start from here. Hands come back. Now, 3 things have to be in place for this. First, the right hand comes to the top of the shoulder. Second, you pivot your center, so you pivot the ball of the foot, you pivot your knee, your navel, and everything is aligned with the nose and the bow. And you pivot your elbow in. Now at this point, as I advance, the weapon now comes straight down. And then back. So here, over the shoulder, and straight. And this is sort of the baseline to create a good habit. You're going to get rid of all those little granular details later on, and it's going to become one movement. But what you're trying to eliminate with this practice is starting from over here and somehow trying to manage to find your way in and hitting a target. That's not aligned with your body. It's all based on hope that you're going to hit the target with any sense of precision. And I put my money against you if it's against a skilled opponent who knows how to move their feet. And you're in sort of a kind of a randori with them. You're not going to hit using that. But if your body's aligned and you move like that, you're going to be much, much more accurate. So with the beginner students, with the younger students like Harry here, this is how I want to teach. This is the first thing. So let's do it together. Seigan no Kamae. Bring the weapon back to this hand position. Then from here, hand comes up to the shoulder. Pivot and align the entire body. Then from here, the center moves first. As I pull with this leg, the center moves first. I don't leap off the back leg, but I bring my center over my lead leg, and it's like I pull versus leap. And then from here, strike straight down. Now, you'll also notice here, maybe you can't see it, but my lead foot is in alignment with the actual direction of my strike. If my lead foot is turned in, it means 2 things. 1, it means that I'm not going to hit with any degree of power. Excuse me. Also, it means I'm not stretching enough. You own that. So, from here, Seigan no Kamae. Weapon comes back for basics. Align the body, turn everything in. Body weight begins to come forward. And then I strike and step into the strike in this manner. Seigan no Kamae, and then repeat. Everything the same. Like that. And this is basic Tento Menuchi. This would be the first strike of our Kihon. So we're going to go ahead and do 10, so Harry and I get a couple reps in. You can watch along, or please just join. If you don't have a bow, just use your hands. But let's do it. Ready? And ich, ni, san, shi, go, rok, shich. Back up a little bit. Hutch. Ku. Ju. Okay. Quick note about bow handling. Common mistake is this. This is sort of like amateur billiards. It's like barroom billiards. It's for the people who play on the 6-foot table and not the 9-foot table. That's just my own thing. Letting the pinky come underneath the bow. Instead, the hand should have full control of the weapon, and you should not gooseneck your wrist like this. This is bad. I shouldn't even have to explain why. But the proper handling, at least the way I was taught, is being able to control the weapon And the important point is the use of the pinky. If you abandon that, then you abandon a significant amount of control of the bow. So make sure that your tewaza, or your hand technique, throughout all of this movement is in place and you train it well. Next technique is going to be Yoko Menuchi. So from here, everything is pretty much the same. Again, for the beginners, I'm just going to bring the weapon back to this position and then I'll advance from there. For more advanced students, once again, just a reminder, you've got 3 different Tai Sabaki you should be working from. First is this basic that you should already be teaching. Second is advancing your body onto the bow. And third is a combination of both. And then from here, this would be maybe a leap. So there's that. I would also say that there's also the movement of Yoko Aruki, but this is something, it's a whole different discussion. So let's go into the next technique. Following Tento Menuchi is Yoko Menuchi, striking to the side of the head. In the basics, I have one technique that Manaka Sensei has, as far as I know, has always taught. Some years ago, he presented while I was doing basics in Japan with my students, he presented a couple of other different ways that I had never trained in the basics. So I kind of teach that to my students after they've really gotten the basics down, and usually at about the 2nd degree black belt level, I begin to introduce new dimensions to these basics so that they can add it to their own training. But let's look at this the most important Kihon for now. So we do 2 strikes, Tento Menuchi. Now Yoko Menuchi. Everything here is the same. Once I'm setting up for Tento Men, I'm coming in this manner like this as though I'm about to strike the Tento Menuchi, and then my advancing foot shifts to a 45-degree angle, at which time I come in and I strike in this manner to the side of the head. You'll notice that my left hand is coming in and it's aligned with my navel here. You'll also notice, and this is an important point that I should have pointed out right at the beginning, is the tightness of my elbow to my body, not this. There are arguments for and against this position with the hand, but the way I learned it was because you're fighting an edged weapon, keeping the elbows tight and close to the ribs, as well as using that lead hand as more of a fulcrum for the strike. You use the oar ring of a boat analogy. This is how the technique is trained. And the elbows are close to the body. And this is Yoko Menuchi. So once again, everything is kind of the same. Once change angle, twice. And again, you'll notice I'm bending my knees. That's an important thing. You ready, Harry? Okay. Yoko Menuchi. We'll do it 10 times. Nice and slow. Each. Knee. San. Shi. Go. Rok. Shich. Hach. Two. Ju. All right. A couple of other things. Sometimes I have to kind of get caught up with myself here because some of these basics are so obvious, I forget to even bring them up. Not this. In your basics, never this. Never this. And what I'm pointing out never is this. Your inability to train to use the whole bow. There are literally books that have been written saying Bojutsu, the weapon of distance. You need to know the distance of your weapon so that each strike in your basics, you're using the entire weapon. It's your body's position that's controlling the distance. It's your footwork. It's your biomechanics that are going to determine where that strike is going to land. Then, within the kata, you can find these adjustments. Within kakihiki, within this tactics of the technique, you'll be able to find that. Inside of pressure testing each kata, you'll be able to find that. But in your basics, my expectation is that every student must use the entire bow as they use their entire body. In every movement, has the most amount of value and no wasted movement, no wasted value. This is Yoko Menuchi. Okay, so if we stack it, our warm-up looks like this. Seigan no Komai, again, full weapon. Each, knee. Good. Then, Yoko Menuchi. Each, knee. Whole weapon. Come on. Next is Douchi. I just want to see if anybody has any questions here. Hey, Mario. Okay, Do. Seigan no Komai. Then from here, we'll bring it back, like we said before. We're going to stay kind of in this template here of just bringing the weapon back, but not bringing our hands back, just letting the weapon come back. This, another point is that this is going to help a beginner student calibrate the distance of their weapon. By doing this a lot, they're going to be able to go right to the proper point for further training. They'll begin to develop or prevent themselves from doing this, and they'll understand the full distance and use of the weapon, like that. Prevent themselves from doing this. But use the whole weapon here. So, one, to this position. Okay, now Do. Do's kind of interesting because any Yahoo can go ahead and do this. That's fine. It's striking straight across. It's striking at the Do. It's clearing all the dishes from the table with one strike. But there are a couple of important granular details to this technique that makes it really, really important that a student must understand. First of all, it's alignment of the strike. You'll see this again in ski. So, to this position, alignment to the strike first. That alignment of the strike is going to exist with both hands. So I may have to lift a bit if the Do is higher. I may have to lower a bit if the Do is lower. So both hands are going to find that alignment. Then from here, it's the lead hand that pulls as my body advances. And I strike. Same principle with the elbow. This is going to be universal with all the techniques that I'm showing here this morning. But the second thing is here, when I do the strike, it does not end here. But actually, it pushes through the target, and I should be finishing with the Bosaki at like about 11 o'clock, but completely through. That hitting of the target happens before the knee passes the foot. But it's at this point, I'm still in forward momentum as I strike, and it's here that I sink the hips and drive into the target with Do, making it powerful. Now, you may have seen me teach this before. Harry, come on over, please. Okay. A way to develop this one Kihon, Sensei taught this exercise. So Harry's going to hold the bow up, and by doing this, it's going to prevent me from just doing like a hard slap, because I don't want to hurt Harry. But what I need to do is I need to place the bow at the point of his belt, and before my foot actually goes to the ground, and I begin to distribute weight into it and forward. Then, without having my elbows separated and trying to push like this, it's all from here. That, as I step in, I need to complete the technique and move him off balance. Now, Harry's not going to try to fight me and try to resist, but he's going to be in a good, stable position like this, and I need to come in slowly and move him with this part of the technique, sinking in. And this, thank you, Harry. This is how we'll be able to build a proper douchi. So let's go ahead, Harry, over here, please. Let's go ahead and do 10 repetitions. But we're going to stack. So let's start from Tento Menuchi, Harry. And this is how we'll warm up class. Tento Men, as I already taught, each, knee. Now Yoko Men, san, shi. Now Do, go, rok, seigan. Okay, so now we have the first 3 strikes of the Kihon. If you have any questions so far, it's a lot of information. I'm putting a lot of stuff here. But if you have any questions, put them down below. Hello from Oz. All right. So next is going to be Ashiborai. This technique gets pretty interesting. It can be done in a lot of different ways. But fundamentally, Seigan no Komai, once again, we're going to bring the hands back. We're going to start from this posture. But once again, I'm going to remind you on every single technique, this is not it. This is for like white belt level. if you have a black belt or even a brown belt on, your technique, you should be advancing, you should be advancing and pulling, and you should be pulling all three of those. And there are even more. You should be leaping with these Kihon after you do your strikes. You should be leaping back with your Kihon. There's so much to advance from this, but this is the absolute base level that I teach my students from. And this is exactly how I was taught early on in my own personal training. So there's a lot of other stuff here. So if you have an instructor that's teaching us and they do it a little bit differently, it's fine. They were at a time working with sensei or with their teacher, and they were seeing different things at that time, and that's fine. But this is the model I use here. Okay, let's go to Ashiborai. So from here, again, we're going to begin from this position. As I advance forward, similar to Do, I come forward and I strike like this. I'm striking into Ashi. Now you'll notice this hand is coming up with the back of the hand. Pinky still made in control, as I already talked about, and it's striking into, like the back of my hand is coming to my chest. So here, I advance forward and I strike through. Same principle as Do. I don't strike to the side of the ankle, I sweep through both legs. With the same flexion in the legs, getting the hips in. Then from here, I release the back hand. And I'm going to actually switch the hands. This movement, common mistake, is to let the weapon go around like this. I would propose you try something different, and that's to bring the weapon back and close to the body. Switch the hands, advance. Now the lead hand is going to be palm forward and strike in, and the hand comes to the chest. All same principles apply, striking through the target, not at the target, and proper weight distribution and movement of the hips. Okay, and this is Ashibray. A little bit faster explanation because by this point you should understand all these different details that I've already explained are also applied in these techniques going forward. Okay, let's do Ashibara here. But we're going to stack it. We're going to go from the beginning. Tento Menuchi each. We've already taught this. Ni, Yoko Menuchi. San, Shi, Doch, Do, Rok. Now let's do 10 reps of Ashibara. Nice and slow, Harry. Ich, Ni, San, Shi, Go, Rok. Keep the elbows close to the body. Hach, Ku, Ju. Okay. So that's where we are right now. Next technique is divisible by two. We have both Gedan and Kote Haneage. So in warm-up, we usually do one of the other, but usually never both because it would involve stopping and then continuing. So for this demonstration, I'll talk about both, but Harry and I are just going to do one. But the principles are both the same. For the beginner, I will advance forward, and this is how I teach it. This is actually how I teach it to the kids. And I just taught it to a whole group of children online, and it took me, these kids had it down in a couple hours. So you should too. Here, knees are soft. I've advanced forward with my back leg, and I simply lower the weapon almost to the ground. So I'm basically doing the same thing as this, as I've already showed you, but I'm now putting it here in front of me. And then I continue advancing with that same leg, but at no point, and this is, if I take everything that I talked about with Tento Menuchi and I flip it over, same principles apply. And if you're just coming on the stream now, scrub back and watch that part because there's some very extremely important details of basic Bojutsu mechanics that I talk about. And the important thing is not coming in with an arc here. You're not coming in, it's what I call scalloping. You're not coming in like this because then the accuracy to your target is just totally based on hope. It's not based on your skill. It's totally based on hope, especially if you're working against an opponent who's moving. They're moving fast and they're moving with intention. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get alignment with our body and the weapon. This is going to be found here. Then the hands stay in front of the body and my right foot continues to step forward and I punch the ground. I come forward like this and I hit up. And you'll see my arm is straight here. I'm not doing this. I'm coming in, boom, and I'm striking up. So that we get on Hanaage, the bosaki's higher than the head. And if you can't do that, then you need to do more burpees. Okay? So get the hips down, bend the knees, make sure everything's aligned properly with a healthy body. That's basically it. All the other fundamentals are in place. Now, when I move forward, kote. This one will be coming in and striking, and now I'm going to stop forward, almost like a chudan no kamae somewhat, and I'm hitting up under the hand. Then I can continue forward, or upward. Sorry, then I can continue upward with Hanaage. So you have two different movements here where you're coming in and you're training to strike under their controlling hand. Possibly they were the sword in chudan no kamae, ichi no kamae, seigan no kamae, daijodan no kamae. Wherever the hands are, I'm going to be coming in and I'm going to be striking at that point. Get on Hanaage. You'll see with like movements like suso Hanaage, like coming up underneath the hakama, lifting there, or coming up and striking up powerfully from underneath in certain kata. The feeling of this strike is the feeling of the two strikes are a bit different. Okay? So let's go ahead and practice the basic Hanaage. We're going to do 10, and once again we're going to stack it. So, seigan no kamae. Please, if you guys have any questions, throw them out there. So, seigan no kamae, and Tento Menuchi, nice and slow, Harry. Ich. Remember, keep all these fundamentals in place. Ni, Yoko Menuchi, san, shi, do, go. Nice and slow, Harry. Roku, Ashibarai. Ich, ni, seigan, Hanaage. Ich, ni. Good. All right. Nice work. The next of the striking sequence is going to be ski. Now, at the more advanced levels, we have what we call nidan ski. It doesn't necessarily speak to the skill level, it speaks to the different striking levels. So we'll go chudan, ski, bring it back to seigan, and then jodan ski coming up underneath the target and hitting up, whether it be striking into the hands, striking into the face. But for the basics for warm-up, which is what my promise was to teach at the beginning of this stream, we're going to keep it at one level and we'll keep it at chudan. The setup for do uchi, very similar in a sense to this, where in seigan no kamae, my right hand comes back to the end of the bow. I find my target, then I advance my tanden, and I hit with my body. I don't hit with a poke. I'm not poking anything. I'm thrusting through. Poking is poking. So here, hand comes back, on target, like this. Then, pull the weapon back, and begin to build that habit, like that nuki, like pulling the spear out of the target. Begin to build that habit there. And don't be lazy. Now, something about that is that if I go and I thrust high, right, I don't want to, and I come back, I don't want to just drop, because you saw this sort of like dip in this movement back. If I thrust high, my thrust is here, then I want to come on that same plane back as I return the weapon to my kamae. If I do ski low, here, I want to return back and return to my kamae. This is just to develop a proper habit as you advance towards the spear and the halberd, because you'll be needing to do that then. So, this is ski. There's not really much more to talk about. Let's go. Seigan no kamae. Hurry, we're going to stack it. Remember, keep your elbows close, hips low, and just move slowly. Keep the mechanics in place. Ich, nice and slow. Ni, Yoko Menuchi. San, shi, doch, ich, ni, Ashiborai, Harry. Ich, ni, return to seigan no kamae. Hanaage, ich, Hanaage, ni, keep the back straight, don't bend the back. And now ski, let's go 5 on each side. Ich, ni, san, shi, go. Let's switch sides. Ich, ni, san, shi, completes the basic strikes. What we're going to move into now is going to be the final part of the Kihon, which is going to be the uke gata, or the receiving techniques. The famous Jodan uke. Okay, we're going to rip this down, and I'm going to bring in some points about actually having someone with a bokken try to hit me as hard and as fast as they can to discover if this technique works or not. And if you go back in any of the videos on Budo Hall, you'll see that we do that in the kata. So in the kata, you have to train with someone. You have to explore the techniques with a partner, a colleague, who's more advanced than you, and that can deliver the proper intention so that you can understand the principle of the kata versus just a sequence of movements. But discovering the principle in each kata and the kakihiki is what's critical, because anybody can do a sequence of any movement. That's nothing. But in a lot of the kata, we see this Jodan uke. We need to kind of discover what it means. So let's talk about that, because once we finish ski, then we'll move into the uke gata. So I'm going to advance my left foot forward. As I do this, my left hand is going to be coming forward with it, like this. So I create a 90-degree angle in this manner. I will not be leaning forward. My spine will be perpendicular, because if you've ever done any basic industrial arts as a 5th grader, you understand the importance of a proper angle brace, right? If you lean in with the children, when I teach grappling in like judo to the kids, there's a principle called breaking the box, which is how you get out pretty much like it's the starting point of breaking any lock, which is to break the 90-degree angle. That's the starting point. Well, if you start already broken, that sword is going to cut right through your receiving technique. So as you move, you want to move like this. This hand will be here. The other hand, the back hand, the elbow is going to replace where this hand is. But at no point do I lose contact with the bow, so I'm not doing this. Instead, I'm moving and controlling the bow, and I'm hot dog bunning this hand. I'm not doing this. If you see that in photographs and you think that that's right, well, I mean, if you happen to be in New York and you want to stop by the dojo and you want to talk about this technique, then I'd be happy to have you work on it with one of the green belts here at the dojo, because you're going to quickly hide that thumb and you're going to realize why quickly. Again, this isn't arrogance, this isn't New York brashness, it's just, these are observations. And I want to share that with you because I feel that that's important for anybody to understand this art properly. So, as I do this movement, this hand is at the 90-degree angle, this hand comes up. Now, it's over my brow line. As you can see, I'm like this, here. I'm not here, but I'm here. Right hand is over the brow line. And I'm receiving in this manner. Not like this. Not like this. Not like that famous photo. I think that photo was, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I think that photo possibly might have been in transition of doing something. But I can't see why anybody would do the block like this if they've ever actually been hit against it. But here, another point is that the hips are low as I move in. And this bow, to prevent the countercut from getting in at your dough, as they come in and they cut downward, I receive like this. You'll see that the bow is at the same height as my knee. So in this position, I'm also preventing a second cut. So this is very important for proper Jodan uke. All right, let's do the movement together. We're going to be advancing. We'll start with the left side. We're going to go nice and slow here. Don't rush, please. Nice and slow. Each. Back. Knee. Back. San. Back. Shi. Back. Now, there's a little thing about the back foot and how that moves, which is important, but I don't want to get too detailed right now. Roku. Touch. I think I lost count. Ju. Good. Okay, this is Jodan uke. And in our basics, this is Jodan uke version 1. There's going to be 2 versions. One, if you've probably already picked up, we look at different Tai Sabaki in the Kihon. So advancing forward always isn't going to be optimal. We're also going to move back. But as we move back, we have to consider the momentum of the weight of the bow. We can't just drop back without considering that we've got this big heavy thing in our hands, as well as an intention of someone attacking us and coming in from a close distance and coming in very close, almost passing our center. So as a result, we need to kind of step back and open the door versus stepping in and risking collision. So the second movement is a little bit unique, but it's just as important in our warm-ups. So from here, I drop back with the left foot. Now, the movement is similar to the Hanbo Katate Uchi. It's kind of like the same movement, but from here, the hands come up in Jodan Uke as I step back, same as before, but the weapon is a bit more in front of me. I do this angle, and it's almost with a feeling of nagashi, like I'm letting the opponent pass by me, and I'm keeping the do protected, I'm keeping my center protected, and I'm almost moving at a 90% favor on the rear leg. So this is that movement. It's pretty unique, but just as important, like I said. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's stack it all up now. How's that sound? We're going to stack everything. We're going to go through the entire sequence. For those of you guys who are watching the stream, you've gotten this far, I appreciate you. But also understand that on our live classes, if you attend any of our Monday night classes when we do Bojutsu, we'll warm up with this repetition sometimes with 1,000 strikes. Not like 5 or 10 that Harry and I are doing right here, but we'll actually go for a solid 20 minutes of just non-stop striking. Between 500 to 1,000 reps is pretty common. So I would encourage you to think about doing the same. All right, let's begin from the beginning. Now we're going to stack the entire thing all the way to the beginning of the stream. Seiga no Kamae, Tento Menuchi, Ich, Ni, Yoko Menuchi, San, Yoko Menuchi, Shi, Do Uchi, Do, Roku, Ashibarai, Shich, Hutch, Haniage, each, slow it down here. I'm going a little too fast myself, and I'm sorry. Ni, Seiga no Kamae. Keep the elbow into your body here. You're letting it out too much. Ski, each, ski, 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 ski. Switch. Good. Now, Hiraichi Monji no Kamae. Jodan Uke, left side first, Harry. Ich. Ni. Jodan Uke, sono ni. Ich. Ni. Okay. Thank you, Harry. These are the basics. This is everything that my students need to know for at least the Bojutsu component of our curriculum up to the Nidan level. Again, there's a whole lot more, and there's a lot of particulars that you can add to this, but that's the basics. That's very important. Okay, as promised, what I'd like to do is talk about the kata Tatsu Otoshi. Tatsu Otoshi means, and I realize I spent a little more time on these basics than I had originally intended, which doesn't leave me a whole lot of time for this kata, but that's okay. I'd prefer it if my responsibility is more to the basics than it is to these kata. So Tatsu Otoshi is like is to knock down a dragon, or to drop a dragon. And I heard Sensei explain once that it's through your bizarre or very unique movement that confuses the dragon. Now, Sensei shared a little story with you here before I get into it. 2003, I was having lunch with Sensei with a group of my students, and Sensei was talking about knocking down a dragonfly from the sky. Now, if you've been around, you've heard this story, because this was a mind-blowing moment. Where Sensei was talking about kind of the anatomy of a tompo, like the dragonfly, and how he would create a fixed point with his finger. He would then get the dragonfly's attention, and then he would very slowly start creating a circle like this. Now you'll notice that I'm not doing this with my hand or my wrist, but it's actually the whole body, because it's one blade of grass just kind of blowing in the wind like this, and the dragonfly will perch itself on that point. And if you're the only high point, and in this case it was a dojo in Mobara, Japan, a judo dojo, so they came inside, it was raining out, and the doors were open, and a couple dragonflies flew in, and Sensei was explaining this. And he would explain that when he was a young man, he'd use this sort of as a bar trick, a trick to really kind of inspire the young ladies. It was a good trick, so it's kind of cool. But my point is that I think of that experience and sensei explaining how through very subtle and controlled body movement, you can confuse a dragonfly and it puts it to sleep. It actually will drop, the dragonfly will drop down and you can hold your hand out and you can actually catch it and hold on to it. So I always think about that, that lunch with sensei and explaining that, like using that as sort of an understanding of this technique. There's no sort of metaphysical, going into some other dimension and fighting dragons nonsense. But it's giving a confusing movement to your opponent that they can't quite understand. This is the principle behind the technique. It's a pretty hard technique too, so but it's also a fun one. Let me get into it and explain. So, beginning Chudan no Kamae. Harry, just hold on a second, then we'll do it together. From here, you'll move based on your opponent's movement, and you present a feeling, an immediate feeling of coming in close and thrusting at them, and then possibly moving back and releasing that pressure and then moving in, but putting them into a place where you're getting them to move, Then from here, you come in and ski. Now, the way that I learned this from sensei was, it's like migi ski, like you're thrusting at their right side. So it's going to be you're thrusting at their lead arm if they're in seigan with a sword. And this is going to cause them to, your bow to deflect to the left, their right. At which time, your right hand throws the weapon forward and it comes behind your right shoulder. Then, from here, move. Now, I'm going to teach today, stay squared off. Don't be bladed. Have the back of the hand to the body in this manner, and there's a slight amount of tension with your right hand that you're putting against the shoulder, and you're controlling the weapon. So ski, and bring the weapon behind the back. Then from here, yokomen. Then from here, left hand throws, bring behind the back. Now it's over your left shoulder. Square off, yokomen. Then, horiagete, washite Yoko Menuchi. And then jump back to Chudan no Kamae. This is Tatsu Otoshi. I know it seems a bit confusing, but once you practice it, you'll get it. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about how this gets behind the back, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to show you my way. I actually have myself with sensei doing this technique. I recorded it, so I know what I'm teaching was what he taught me on that day and the days that followed. So that's how I teach my students. So let's do it together. We'll do the basic combination. Now, if you're at home, you're watching this, you're sitting on your ass, watching on your phone in your car, in your living room, get up, pull over, get out of your car, stand on your feet. Let's do this movement together. Grab a stick, grab a broom handle, grab a pencil, whatever. So let's go really slowly here. Chudan no Kamae, ski. Now, right hand, this is all going to depend on how they move. We want to consider that the energy is going to our left. They are now open to our right. Their sword is to their left in this moment. And at which time, I'm throwing the weapon like this. Now, this is not meant, I never learned that this is a strike. I would consider it very much a confusing movement, though, at which point I will shift my weight as they see this coming, and it's sort of a cloud that I'm going to hide behind, because I may move back, I may move to the side, I may leap. This is all going to be dependent on how I've read them, and this is really important to understand. But for the basic, Harry, we're going to ski, then the right hand throws forward, and my right foot is going to step to 3 o'clock, and I'm going to bring the bow behind my back. My left hand is palm facing behind me. I secure the weapon over the shoulder. I wait for a 1 count, at which time I study the opponent, I strike. Then I repeat. I throw the lefts forward, I bring the weapon behind my shoulder, and I secure the weapon. The right hand is now palm behind. At this point now, regardless of where they went, I strike in, then quickly lift the bow as I bring my body weight back. They've now deflected to their right. Their weapon is over here. Now I pull them into coming into my do and coming in low to attack to their right, my left. At which point, I've completed Horiage and Yokomen powerful. To to their left side. And then jump back to Chudon. Okay? Let me see if it wants. Try your best. And if any of you guys are watching this, if you want to shoot me a message, if you want to message me you doing this technique, I don't really care what organization you're from or not from, it'll make a difference to me. If you want to shoot me a video of you doing this technique, I'd be very happy to give you a detailed critique, and I'll be gentle. Okay, nice and slow. Each, ski, good. Now from here, throw the right forward as you step your right to the side. That's it. No, you want to bring this part behind. No, don't switch your hand. I didn't say switch your hand. I said bring this part. No, rewind. So let's do it again. Ski. Now, the part that you're throwing, Harry, is going to go down. You're going to point it to the ground. Go ahead, throw it. Down, throw it, point it to the ground, bring that behind. Yes, that's correct. Now secure the bow. Now remember, the reason why your bow just hit the ground is because this thing that we talked about an hour ago of training to control the weapon, like this, isn't yet in place. So you want to kind of apply that here if you can. So ski, go ahead. Keep your basics in place, footwork, elbow in please. Good. Now from here, you're going to throw the right hand and step to the right. Go ahead. Bring the bow pointed down, bring it up behind the back. You want to keep your intention here. Don't look around at the bow. Then from here, secure it. Nice. Change your intention to focusing on where your opponent is so that you condition your senses to, at this point, monitor. Now, strike Yoko Men as you advance your right foot forward. Good. Now, your left hand is going to throw the bow. So go ahead, throw the left hand. Do it. Now bring the tip up and then down and behind your back as you step your left foot to the side. Look, I'm just teaching you the technique. After you've tried it 10,000 times, then if you can't do it correctly, we'll have a discussion. Right now, I just want you practicing it over and over again. Slowly and patiently. Once, throw, step. Body weight distribution is correct for those of you guys who are a little more experienced. Nicely done here. Now from here, study and move into that space. Yoko Menuchi. Now, this is where it got a little bit difficult. Move back a little for the people on camera. Now, watch. I'm going to throw the left forward, and that point that I threw is then going to go straight down to the ground. Then it's going to continue around to the back as I step to the left, and I secure the bow over the left shoulder. Then from here, I do my second Yoko Men, and I strike. Yoko Men, yeah? Yoko Men. You're not striking Yoko Men to Smurfs. Yoko Men. Good. Now, step the right foot back, Harry. Lift the left hand and release with the left hand. Now, powerfully step the right foot forward as you strike Yoko Menuchi. And please make sure that that power isn't generated with the lead hand, but with the back hand. Good. Now, jump back to Chudon. Good work. You feel as though you have the basic sequence?
Sort of. I need to work on the beginning to work with.
That's all right. We'll keep working on it. We'll keep working on it. For you guys who at least have it down here on this video and you can practice the movement, I am going to say that there's a lot of other areas to this technique that involve a little bit more attention, such as the timing, the weight distribution. You need to train this against an opponent who understands the technique, and you need to be able to push them and move them in certain ways so that you can create the openings to attack into and provide and create weaknesses and cracks in their movement. Otherwise, again, like I said earlier, you're just doing a combination of movements, and that's kind of meaningless and it's wasted time. So first step is to learn the combination. Understand what the technique means so that you can future cast a little bit. You know what you're working towards. You know what you're trying to accomplish, rather than some ethereal definition of knocking a dragon out of the sky. What does that mean? And why is it that? Well, I've already explained it, but this is how I want you to go forward, looking at each kata. And then, of course, if you've been around me, you know that I don't never leave that word kata alone. I always explain it. Yes, you are going to release yourself from the kata, free yourself from the form and all that. But man, if you don't have your basics in place, you're just going to be really great at sucking. And I don't want that from anybody that spends any time with me like you are right now, whether you're a colleague, whether you're a more advanced student than myself, or whether you're someone who's interested in genuinely learning this stuff. It's still time spent, and I value that. Okay, so this is Tatsu Otoshi. So today in this class, thank you, Harry, so much for spending time with us. Today in this class, we covered a whole lot of material. We covered the basic warm-up that I do here in my dojo, and I really broke each technique down to the granular, each technique down to basic principles. But please, once again, understand there's a whole lot more to that. It doesn't stop there. There are a lot more strikes, there are a lot more Kihon, but this is the basic regimen that I have found over 20 years of doing it that students will progress best from. My students anyway. If you're an instructor and you have your regimen, I feel that's great. I'm not questioning that, so long as you're doing something and you're not hurting your students by missing important points. And then we went into the kata Tatsu Otoshi. Understanding the principle of the movement, as I just said, is more important than understanding the combination of movements. Anybody can do that, but it takes a true student to pursue the meaning and the purpose behind each individual kata. That's all I have to say for today. I hope you guys appreciated the time spent here this morning, Saturday morning. Thank you once again, Harry. Let's bow out.
Thank you.